Welcome everybody. This is the end of the year checklist review training session. Today we're going to be walking through the school building checklist and the district checklist. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to do the building checklist first, and then Stephanie is going to go ahead and take care of the district checklist. Okay. So we are in our training database, but we do ask that you are in your own live environment as you follow along with the building checklist. But again, we're in the training database, so none of this information is personal or identifiable. That is being shared. All names are fake, even if names don't look fake, although I think in this one, there are clearly some pretty fake names in there. As you know, the end of the year is coming soon, and for most of you, that means students, teachers, and most of your staff are going to be leaving your building to enjoy their summer break. It also means that Meta will be running your end of the year process, rolling your building over into the 26-27 school year. Okay, so even though Meta runs your final end of the year process, there are tasks on these checklists that we would like you to go through before we can do that. There are certain things that need to happen before the process or rollover can occur. There are certain items on the checklist that if an error exists, it's going to stop us from running your end of the year process. So if you are gone for the summer, you certainly don't want to get those phone calls in June needing us to have you go in and make these updates. So, we do ask that you start working on your end of your checklist now. Start looking at it now, addressing and cleaning up any issues so that when we get to your actual end of year, it's a smooth process. Okay, so I'm not sure how many district leaders we have on the call, but district leaders would have received an email from a Meta team member around the middle of March, and that email would have your end of the year date that we're going to run your end of the year, along with any pertinent information regarding your end of the year. So it's quite a lengthy email. There's some information in there about class rank and whether you roll over fees. So if you haven't taken a close look at that email, please do so. There's also either a link to our documentation or it might be attached, but either way, the end of the year checklists, the most updated ones you're going to find here in your Meta documentation. So I'm not going to go in. Everybody should be familiar now with how to look up documentation, but if you click over here and you search for end of year, you should find both the building and the school checklists. Excuse me. So for the DLs in the group today, if you have any questions, please reply on that specific ticket with regard to any end of the year questions. So Meta has different team members assigned to different districts. If you're not a district leader, please contact your district leader and have them submit any questions for you. So if you're running through your building checklists and you run into problems, you can first start with your district leader and then they can put it on the ticket for you. Like I said before, while we're in today's training, please feel free to ask any questions on mute, or you can put your questions in the chat. And as we leave today's training, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, so we're going to start, like I said, with the school checklist. So the first thing on the checklist is under current year. So as you can see, I just picked a building in my training database called East Randy High School, and I am in the current 25-26 school year. Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at is years and terms. So I'm in a high school, which is high schools and some middle schools are typically power scheduler buildings, which means they work with our power scheduling team to set up their master schedules in order to run and create schedules. So if you are working in a building that is a power scheduler building, the first thing you want to do is check your years and terms by clicking on Application, Power Scheduler, and then on the left side navigation, you're going to click on Years and Terms. So we're looking at the 26-27 school year. And we're going to come over here to edit terms. And we can already see that the 26-27 school year is already built in PowerScheduler. So if you're a PowerScheduler building, more than likely, these are already going to be created for you. Keeping in mind that the PowerScheduler years and terms will overwrite anything done on the live side for power scheduling buildings. So if you come in here and you look at your term setup, and we click into the 26-27 school year, you're going to see how each of these terms was built out. So if you're creating these new, you would, on the previous page, click on new, and it gives you the examples. You have your 26-27 school year, your abbreviations, the first day of the term, the last day of the term, and these are students in seats. Unlike scheduling where you do a +1, these are the actual students in seat days of your school year. And then what portion of the school year does this represent? It's a full year. And then if your term ID is blank, there will be a term ID underneath representing the term ID that the full school year represents, or whichever term you're in. It's important for you to go ahead and type that number in here if it's blank, and then you'll hit submit. These term IDs are really important for Meta. We use these a lot when troubleshooting and just searching for different things in scheduling and grades and so forth. So you can see this term setup is set up to the semester and the quarters. And this is telling me that this high school runs full year courses, semester courses, and potentially quarter length courses. They have the terms for quarters. So you'll want to make sure to work with your scheduling team if you're unsure of what should be built out here, or if it's built out fully at this point in time. Okay. So if you are not a power scheduler building, you are going to build out your years and terms on the live side. So you're going to go, if you're in elementary school, you're going to go to school management, scheduling, and years and terms, and you're going to come in this way. And it's going to look very similar to what we just looked at. And the same thing, if you don't have 26 and 27 already built, you're going to come up here and click on new and just follow this example grid, and you're going to create your years and terms. Now, please note that you do want to build your years and terms to the lowest term that you use in your building. Okay. Another thing to note is that all of your buildings will need your years and terms built out. So especially if you're a district leader, you want to make sure when you're going back and you're checking each school that you're also looking at your electronic building, your graduated building, and your virtual buildings, etc. So keep that in mind when you're building your years and terms. So one option that you have is to suppress classes for terms from parents and student users. So if we come in to our terms, and if you see this asterisk next to the term, that is telling me that when you click into the term, classes have been suppressed from the parent and student users. So over the summer, right now, when scheduling is still being worked on, you may not want that information exposed to parents and students. So you'll want to come in here and make sure that these are checked. Now, with our power scheduler districts, during the end of the year process, we do check this for you. Like, we will make sure that these are suppressed. Another thing to note on the email that you were sent, if you do not want your years and terms suppressed for whatever reason, please respond to the email and let us know that. Otherwise, it's done automatically. The other item that you can suppress here or exclude is from the Meta report card. So most everybody does use our Meta report card. And the students are very savvy. They might not be able to see their schedule under schedule, but they can go and look at their report card and they're not going to have any grades in there, but they'll see their schedule in there. So you probably want to block that down as well. So some of these settings enable you to not have to take the portal down over the summer, although that is also an option. But if you take the portal down, it takes it down for everything. Any questions so far on the years and terms information?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay. So now we're going to run some searches. Again, we're here in a building and we're going to run some searches to make sure that students are set up so that when the rollover takes place, they are going to move appropriately within the system. So the first search we're going to do is we want to look up students that don't have a next school listed. So I'm going to clear my search. And I'm going to come up here and I'm copy and pasting from the checklist. You can do that. You can come in here and look at your view field list and just start typing next school and click on it. If you already know it, if you already know the field, you could just start typing it in and it'll type in for you. But the search is next underscore school equals blank. So we are trying to determine all the students currently in our high school that don't have a next school noted. So I'm going to hit search. Okay, so I have 38 students that are missing their next school. So there's a couple of ways that you can fix this. One is a group action, or it can be done individually. So right now, looking at my students, it looks like I have a mix. I have some seniors in here. So probably my seniors are going to be graduating. So they're not going to be moving to the same building as my underclassmen. So I'm going to add to my search, and I'm going to add a grade level. And you can see when I start typing it in, it comes up. And I'm going to do grade level does not equal, well, actually, let me do grade level is less than 12, because I could have some grade 13s, 14s, and so forth. So I'm going to do less than 12. So now you can see I have only my 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. So I'm going to perform a group action and I'm going to correct the information for my 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, and I'm going to add their school buildings. So we're going to go to school enrollment, and we're going to go to set next school indicator. Okay, and you just want to make sure. So I know I have my 24 students brought up, and you just want to double check that you're still working with the same 24 students. We are in East Randy High School, and I know, because it's my job to know, that these students are all staying at the same high school next year. If you had a student that was going to a different school, you could leave them out of your search. But for what we're doing today, we're going to assume everybody is staying at this high school for next year. So in the drop down, you would have in your live building that you're working in the option to pick East Randy High School. This is a train database and I don't have that, so we're just going to pretend. And then I would go ahead and hit submit, and that would move all these students to have a next school indicator. Okay, so going back to my search, then I'm going to look at my 12th graders, because remember, they also did not have a next school building. So I'm going to change my search, and I'm going to eliminate my 12th graders. I could run the search again after I fixed all these to have them go away, but since it's a train, I'm not going to do that. So now I'm going to do grade level equals 12, or grade level is greater than 12 and greater than 11. And I'm going to go ahead and hit search. So now I have all my 12th graders that don't have a next school building. or our next school, building. My 12th graders are all going to graduate, so I'm going to perform the same function. So I have 14 students, so I'm going to come to my enrollment, my set next school, and I'm going to change all my 12th graders to the graduate building. So keeping in mind, we don't withdraw our seniors, we move them actually to a graduated building. Okay, and then I would hit submit and all of those students would move there. We'll talk a little bit about retained students in a minute, but in general, you're gonna just in mass move all these students to where you think they should be at this point in time. Things could change before the end of the school year, and you can always go back and make updates. Okay, so I'm gonna clear that search, and my next search is gonna be to make sure all of my students have are moving to the appropriate grade for next year. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do schedule next year grade equals blank. Again, you can do that from your field list, cut and paste, or type it in. And we're going to go ahead and hit search. So this identifies all of our students that are missing grade values for the following year. So same as with the school building, we can do this in mass or we could do this individually. I'll show you individually after I show you how to do this in mass. But as you can see here, we have a whole bunch of different grade levels. So we obviously aren't going to move everybody to the same grade. So you will have to do some additional filtering out just to make sure you're moving students into the appropriate grade level. So if I'm starting with my 9th graders, and 9th graders equal blank, or sorry, grade level equals 9. Now I have all my 9th graders. Okay, so this mass change is a little bit different. We're going to go over here to change student field values. And let me go back and just show you. There's 2 ways to get to this. So if you use your little upside down caret here, we have all the menus here that are listed also in your left side navigation. So when we went to the new enhanced menu, prior to that, we had to search them here. But now there's also a way to get to them over here. So we're going to go to people, students, and then student management, and then change student field values. So, you know, again, with PowerSchool, there's definitely more than one way to get to different things. So we know we have our 10 students selected. These are our current 9th graders. And again, the field that we are correcting is called our schedule and underscore next year grade. So the new field value at this time, because we don't know who's being retained or not moving on, we're going to move all our 9th graders so that when the rollover occurs, they're all going to move to 10th grade. So it's going to give you the old value and then the new value that we're assigning, and then you would hit submit. You would go back and you would do that for each grade level of students that you need to make those corrections on. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about retained students. So, you know, a lot of times those lists don't come in until the very end of the year, and you want to make some adjustments to your retained students. So I'm going to run my search again. Okay, so let's assume that this young man is going to be retained next year. His current grade level is 9. You would do your retentions individually. So I'm going to go ahead and click into this student. And now I'm going to look at changing him individually. So I'm going to go to courses and programs, scheduling settings. And so this is where those 2 fields live that we've previously looked at. So this is where our next year grade is. You can see his next year grade says 0. and his next school indicator is also blank. So if we know that this student's going to be retained, he's currently in ninth grade, you would come back here and change the student to ninth grade and then keep him in the current building that he's in. I just don't have that option because we're in a train. So I would go ahead and hit submit. So one other thing to note on your retained students, if again, if you use our Meta report card, Meta online report card, there is another area to note if a student is being promoted or being retained. So you'll want to take a look there. So you're going to go to your student profile, and I believe it's under other information. Yep. And if you scroll down, you're going to see this section for Meta report card. So you'll want to, at this point in time, because you don't want this information exposed right now, you'll want to make sure you have your boxes checked for anybody that you aren't promoting. So do not display promotion indicator on the report card, and maybe hide that from the portal. Again, these are all district decisions on how you handle these things. And then you would want to change the student to retained. And then when you're ready to expose that information, this would have to be opened up. Okay, and then you would just hit submit on that. Any questions on the retained students or the recent searches that we just did? Okay. I'm not going to save that, but I am going to go back to this page. So right now I have our next year grade search in. So we talked a little bit about seniors. Seniors need to move to the graduate building, but they will also need to move to grade 99. So you would want to do a mass search. You can choose all your seniors. So here we can clear this. You can either make the corrections or just come in here to all your seniors if they're all graduating, and you could do a mass change just like we did with the grade level change. So it was school enrollment. Next school indicators, you're going to switch them to the graduate building. And then down here, you're going to change their student field value. And we're going to do their next year grade. Oops, sorry, Sketch. Next year grade. And then all of your 12th graders that are graduating should go to grade 99. Okay. Again, you'll go back so you can see right here we have some grade 13s. Maybe some of these students are still staying, some special ed extended, possibly some seniors that aren't graduating, but you'll want to make sure that that information is how you need it to be, and you would hit submit. Okay. So that's the searches that we want to get done for all of our active students. But you also want to make sure that you're looking at your pre-registered students. So you're going to go back. The next thing on our checklist is to look at the same information, but now we want to look at our pre-registered students. I'm going to clear that search, and I'm going to copy and paste. So this is, yeah, I do have it. This is a compound search. So the first thing we put in there is their enrollment status equals -1, because -1 represents our pre-registered students. So now we want to look at, do our pre-registered students have a next school? So again, next school equals blank, and we'll go ahead and hit search. So it shows we have 5 students that don't have a next school. Your pre-registered students might be sitting in your enrollment building. They might be in your buildings. It just depends on how your district does enrollment. So same thing as earlier, you want to make those corrections with how you register your students. If they're already, these are the students with blanks, so you want to make sure their next school is correct. All of these, I mean, we wouldn't have a senior, obviously, probably, well, we could, pre-registered. So you want to make sure that they're going to fall into the correct next building. And you're just going to make that change to your school enrollment, set next school indicator, I'm assuming if it's a pre-registered senior, that means they're starting next year as a senior. And then you just move them to the correct building. You're going to do the same search and look for your pre-registered students that are missing a grade for next year. But something to keep in mind here, and again, it's going to be different for each district. It's how your district registers pre-registered students. Oh, let me clear my search first. So if you're pre-registering students with the grade level that they're going to be in for the 26-27 school year, you just want to make sure that when you're making your changes to the next year grade, you're making the grade level appropriately for how your district registers. So maybe these are registered as ninth graders because they're going to be in ninth grade in the 26-27 school year. If that's the case, when you do make that change, you're going to keep them as ninth graders again for next school year. So paste my search again, but I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, so again, we have our field that we want to search is their next year grade. I had multiple grades mixed in, so I'm not going to hit search, but let's assume I filtered down to just my ninth graders. You would keep them in ninth grade. If you register in ninth grade, their current grade they're in for the 25-26 school year, then you would want to move them so they're moving to 10th grade. Sorry if I made that more confusing than it needed to be. So if you're back here and you're looking at this pre-registered student, you could look at her individually by going, again, courses and programs to her scheduling settings, and then just make sure that she's ninth grade. We know she's going to be ninth grade next year. We know she's going to stay in this building. So you can update everybody and then make individual changes as needed. But you're going to do those same search on your not inactive, but your pre-registered students. Okay, so those are all the searches you're going to do to find just missing information so that when these students roll into the 26-27 school year, they fall into the correct grade and the appropriate building. Okay. So once you're done with all your searches, the next thing we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to run some reports. The first report we're going to look at is a PSCB report. So we're going to come down here to data and reporting, and you have your PSCB custom reports. And I believe most of the reports we're going to run today are on our validation tab. Okay, so the first report we're going to look at is invalid enrollment dates. So this lists all students with exit dates that are prior to their enrollment dates. Now these are searches, I will also say, on our monthly checklist. All of these searches are listed as well as what we just covered. So it is definitely something that you could look at all year long. You don't need to wait for the end of the school year to make these corrections and updates. It'll make things easier at the end of the school year. So we're going to look at the invalid enrollment dates and see if we have any errors. So you can see we have 4 students and their entry date is prior to their exit date. So we know that's incorrect. So if you're at a school building and you're the person that would handle making these changes, you can make the changes right here on this screen. So if you know that the correct date for the student is also 7/1, you can make those changes right here. Let's say you're at the building and you are not the person that corrects these and you need to get that information to them. You can go ahead and export this information into a spreadsheet, send that to whoever would look this information up for you, and then you can come back here and make those changes once you have the information and you can hit submit. So it's a nice report, and it's nice because the changes can be made right here on the page. Okay. The next report you're going to look at is, again, under PSCB reports. It is another validation report. And now we're looking at invalid entry dates. So it's a little different. This lists all the students whose entry dates does not fall within the first and last day of the school year. So we've already outlined our years and terms, so we already know what our start and end dates are for our school year. And this report is going to show us anybody that falls outside of those dates. So you can see here, acoustic entry date was 2013. So this is some really wonky information because the school year is, we're looking at the 25-26. Another nice thing about this report is you can make the changes right here on this page. So if we know that the correct entry date for the student was 2025, we can go 8/13/2025 and make that change here. Same as the other one, you can export it if you have somebody else that works on correcting that information. Yeah, I guess I see, look at that. I made a 12 and not a 13, and I still got an error. Because it was still outside the school year. Okay, and then you can see she's gone, so she's been corrected. So those two validation reports are very nice because you can make the changes right there on the page. The next one we're going to run is the end of the year setup error report. So I'm going to go to my start page, data and reporting, PSCB reports, and this is going to be my year-end setup errors under validation. Year-end setup errors list possible errors in the next year grade and school setup for each student. So you've already done all of your cleanup for this. So when you come into this report, you should not see 453 students because you've already run the individual searches for next year grade and next year building. However, this is a nice way to check if anything has changed since you've gone and done that. So this lists all your errors, errors only. So you have your current status, your pre-enrolled students, and you can see the things that are missing, and then it outlines the errors for you in the last column. This is a report that you cannot make changes and fix these mistakes from the report. You would have to go to the individual students and make these changes. However, you can make the students your current list of students. So if you're working on 2 screens, you can go ahead and open up your students on a separate screen so you still have access to your mistakes, to your errors, I should say, and you can work through the errors. Or you can go back and do some of your other searches again to correct the errors and then come back to this report. You can also export this and send this to whoever needs to validate the information for you. All right. And then the next report is a little different. This is a report that is going to show you all of your students. So data and reporting, PSCB reports. So this report is called your year-end setup validation. So it's not showing you errors necessarily, although there can be errors in the report. It is showing you all of your students and additional information as well. So this school has 2,062 students. So this is a nice way, probably easier to export it, work with it on a spreadsheet, but you can also make filtering decisions here. So if we want to know all our students that we retained, that we have marked to retained, you can search that. And then you just want to, you're just checking. You're just validating that this information is correct, that this student is in this school, in this grade, they're going to be retained. Hopefully this would all be filled in because you've already previously corrected this, but which school they're going to be in next year, which grade they're going to be in. You might want to look at, let's look at all of our pre-registered students, pre-enrolled. Okay. So it's a nice report to search, but again, we have errors on here because we didn't correct them, but this is going to show all of your students, not just students that have errors. So if you have students that are supposed to be moving from one high school to another, and you come in here and see that they're staying in their same high school, So it's just a validation report, but it's a nice one that can be exported. You can also make the students your current selection, but that really doesn't do much good. It's all your students. Any questions on any of the PSCB reports that we've run so far and what you're looking at and what you're looking for? Okay, any questions in the chat that somebody had an
Uh,
error getting the PSCB reports? Yeah, so um, most districts should have PSCB reports available to them, but some districts do have a paid version as opposed to the free version. So yeah, you'll want to check your plugins. And if you're still having issues after you've looked at everything, you can always put in a ticket and we can take a look at it for you. But those are not meta reports, they're PSCB, so you would have to have that enabled and up and running. Okay. So the next report we're going to look at, I do need to switch databases because of being in a trained database, I had no information, and I do want you to be able to see this. So give me a second. I'm going to go into a different. Okay, so now I'm in test 05. And I'm going to go to one of my school buildings. Let's go to East Amber High School. Okay. So the next report we're going to look at is we're going to run and review our ADA, ADM by student report. We want to be in the current school year, and we're going to come to data and reporting, reports, and system reports. Now, it's important to note that this report is not an accurate report for any chronic absenteeism, but it is a good report to check FTE values, membership, and attendance conversions for your students. So again, data and reporting, reports, system reports, and we're going to scroll down to our membership and enrollment reports, and we're going to look at the ADA, ADM by student. Okay, you have to change your attendance mode, and you're going to change that to daily, which is automatically going to change your attendance conversion to code today. And you would want to look at your whole building. I am just going to choose ninth graders in case it takes a long time to run the report. And you want to make sure you have your correct beginning and end of the 25-26 school year dates. If you come in here, you also want to make sure include absent column is checked. If you've run it before, it probably is, but if you're in here for the first time, it may not be. So that's what you want to fill out here, and then you're going to go ahead and hit submit to get the report. The report does show up on your individual My Jobs queue, so it's not something that everybody can see. It's just going to be in your queue. And that ran through pretty quickly. So we're going to go ahead and hit view. Sometimes if it's taking a long time and you hit refresh, it speeds it along for you. But we're going to go ahead and hit view. And then we want to take a really close look at this report. So some of the things that we're looking for, and we're going to talk a little bit later about the calendars, and that's where some of this information comes from. Membership, and tracks and so forth. So you're looking at your student. Their membership days should equal the number of days that they are enrolled. So it should match if they're here the whole year. So this student shows an entry date and an exit date showing that they were here the whole entire year. So they should have the full membership, which is 164 days. Then you're going to look at their attendance, that's when they were in school, and their absence, when they were absent. Those two should equal your membership days. So there's some other things that can skew this information, but that's ultimately you're kind of scrolling down this report and making sure that the math. So let's look at this student. He has not enrolled 88 days. Well, I want to look at his dates, and I can see that he withdrew. So he only has 76 membership days. Out of those 76 days, he was here 40 and a half days. He was absent 35 and a half days, which would equal the 76. but then he has 88 days unenrolled. So if you were to add the 88 and the 76, that's 164 days for the entire year. We also have what's called off-track days. So those come into play if you have your students set to tracks. So it looks like in this building, all of our freshmen, all of our ninth graders are on track 1. So track 1 may have a different number of membership days than, track A may have a different membership day than track B or C or D. It just depends on your school. So I said I misspoke on that. The ninth graders are on track A and B, and we'll look at that a little bit closer when we get to the calendar. But it's telling me they have off-track days. So on track A and track B, they have one less day, and we'll see that when we look at the calendars. So what you're looking for in here is anything that just stands out. If you see a student has a 0 in here, if you see just anything just that really looks crazy, typically 99 out of 100 times it's because the student doesn't have an FTE ID assigned to them. So if we were to go back to our student search, I'm actually just going to go back to our other trained database and just look at a student and show you where you're looking. So if you're looking at your ADA and ADM and you have a student that just seems to be really off in what they're showing, you want to come back and look at that student and you want to look at their enrollment, their school enrollment. And you're going to look at their enrollment history. And then you're going to click into this year's enrollment history. And you want to make sure that that student has a full-time equivalency. Most of the time, that's the issue. It's either they have an error in here or they have an invalid FTE. And once you make that update and you go back and rerun your report, their attendance and everything is going to calculate out correctly. Okay. If you have anything besides this type of an error and you can't figure out where that is coming from, you can put in a ticket with Meta and we can take a look at all of your settings to make sure why things aren't calculating correctly on that report. But it is a nice way to, like I said, to catch these FTEs, to catch any attendance conversion issues that you might have, and so forth. Any questions on the ADA, ADM?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving right along. Meta does recommend that you print certain reports at the end of the school year. So we have a list of recommended reports in the Meta end of the year folder. And I think PSCB also has a reports bundle that has suggestions, but there are reports, and let's just go in here and look at the document real quick. So you're going to come up here to Meta documentation. And I'm going to search recommended reports. And it's going to download. And so just to take a quick look, we recommend for safekeeping and for reference down the road that you electronically store some of these reports. And the reason is once the end of the year process happens, some of these reports are not accurate or attainable once the new year begins. So take a look. I mean, it's obviously a district decision, but we've definitely gotten tickets, down the road, a year or two. Hey, I want to go back 2 years and I want to know this information. And some of the information is just not available. So if you keep electronic files, Meta recommends storing those electronically for safekeeping. Okay. Activities. So all student activities are automatically carried over during the end of the year process. So if we come, let's go to our district. Okay, so district management, courses and programs, remove students from extracurricular activities. So if you want to clear out your activities at the end of each school year, you can go ahead and run those here. Check off whichever activities. If it's not something you do, you just update them each year and remove at the beginning of the year. That's fine too. It's really however your district does that. But they will automatically carry over during the end of the year process. Okay. All right. Moving on to scheduling. So we're still at the building level. So let me go back to the building. I'm frozen. All right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to review number of periods and days in both Power Scheduler and on the live side. So if we're a Power Scheduling district, we're going to come back here to Applications. And same as before, Power Scheduler. And we're going to come over here to left navigation. We're going to look at the periods and the days. So we'll look at the periods first. And you might not know the answer as the building staff responsible for this list. So you'll definitely want to check with whoever does your power scheduling to make sure that this is an accurate depiction of what your period should be. Okay. And then you're going to do the same thing. So you can come back here in your breadcrumbs, or you can just scroll over here. And you also want to look at your days. And you want to make sure that your days are built out how your building uses it. So this particular school is on a 5-day schedule, A through E, depending on the day of the week. And again, you can verify this with your power schedulers. If you are not in a power scheduling building and you're on the live side, you would go into school management. So let me go to the start page. Okay, and you're going to come to scheduling. And you're going to go back to your years and terms that we went in earlier. And we want to click on the year. And you want to make sure that your periods match what you saw on the power scheduler. So we had 22 periods and we had 5 days. If these numbers don't match, get with your scheduling team. If you are not a power scheduler building, you don't have to worry about the match. So, but if you are and they don't match, check with the folks in your building that handle. And we have power scheduler meetings that go on. Oh my gosh, they start in November and they're still going on. So there'll definitely be some folks in your building that are well aware of, they've been in some meetings with the Meta Power Scheduler team, and they can help you with this. Okay. An important note, there are deadlines to make sure that, scheduling is happening. If you're on the live side, that you have things built out, but especially if you're a power scheduler building. So at some point in time prior to your end of year, Meta is going to commit your schedules. And all that means is we're going to move your schedules from Power Scheduler, and they're going to become live schedules. But prior to committing those schedules, we want to make sure that everything is done. So I know that the scheduling team, they have deadline dates. So you'll want to make sure you know what those dates are, just to make sure that the power scheduler are doing, they're where they need to be at this time of year. I mean, we're on May 26th. I'm going to assume most buildings at this point in time are very, very well into the power scheduling and have that information just about done. Our end of years run 2 weeks in June. So the date is probably a week prior to whatever your date is, that those need to be solidified, and you need to make sure that nobody is in there making changes. So again, each building is going to be different. Each district is going to be different. So check with your administrators on that. The next thing on the list is the master schedule. So if you are an elementary school building, potentially even some middle schools, you probably just have all your courses in a master schedule, and you're not using Power Scheduler, but you want to make sure that you also have that copied over to the following school year. So you're going to come to school management, scheduling, and copy master schedule. Now, we are not on the scheduling team, Stephanie and I, so we're not going to go into a lot of details on how this works, but there is a YouTube training session. I believe they've already had their session for this spring. So the video is out there. It was recorded live and on our YouTube channel, but they'll give you the information on how to do this effectively. So you can copy your master schedule, and then if you choose to, or if you need to, you can go into the 26-27 school year and start making changes that are going to occur for the 26-27 school year on the live side. It's just really important to make sure you're in the new school year when you're making any changes, and you're not in the current school year. But if you do want to get more information on copying over your master schedule, we do recommend that you go ahead and watch that live side training. There's also a lot of documentation on it in our documentation folder. So whichever is easiest for you to do. Any questions so far on anything I've gone over so far? You know, if you've done the checklist before, it really, I don't think we added much to it this year. It's pretty much the same steps each year. So hopefully by now, everybody's getting a little bit more familiar with it. The next thing we're going to talk about is in the future year. So we are going to change to the 26-27 school year. And the first thing we want to look at is our calendars. So we want to build our calendars for the next school year. So building our calendars can be done individually by school, or it can be done by your district leader at the district office. So using batch scheduling, batch school setup, I'm sorry. So before you build your schedule, at this point, everybody's is probably already built because of the date. But if your calendar is not built and you are going to build it, check with your district leader first, and to make sure that they are not going to be building that for you using batch school setup. So you're going to come here to school management, scheduling, and then we're going to look at both configure automated calendar and configure calendar. So we've already looked at our years and terms, but the first thing I'm going to do is come into configure calendar. So your 26-27 school year is going to show up. All of this, if you've not built your calendar, everything in here is going to be blank, but it will show you your start date and all the way to your end date. So you will have all your days built out. So if you know that you're the person that has to build out your calendar, you'll need to come in here and do so prior to the end of year. But keep in mind, it's not set in stone. So if you come in here, so we're gonna build out this calendar. You have to know the cycle day. So we already know this school is built on a Monday through Friday day, and the first day of school is Wednesday. So I would start building my cycle days, Wednesday, Thursday, and so forth. What day does this represent? This is a regular day of school. Is it a pep rally, or is it a 2-hour delay? And you put that information there. You want to check every day your school is in session, and you want to give that membership value a 1. So when we talked earlier about the ADA, ADM, that's where those numbers are coming from. So it's taking all the membership values based on what you have checked off on your calendar and adding those together. If you have your students on track, it's also taking in that information. So Meta does recommend, if you use tracks or you don't, that you fill them all out. And we say that because down the road things can change. And if you're copying your calendars over or mass entering, it's a lot easier to have these already filled out and then go back and just check and uncheck as needed if you decide you're going to use tracks. An example of why you might use tracks. So let's say we're in a high school, but let's say the 9th graders all start on Wednesday, but none of the 8 other grades start. So we already know our 9th graders are A and B, but let's say our 10th, 11th, and 12th are in track C, and we uncheck track C. That doesn't count as a membership day against anybody that's assigned track C. So that might be all our upperclassmen, because the first day of school we're only going to have our 9th graders. Same goes at the end of the year. Seniors, a lot of times they leave early. So if we have our seniors, they might all be on track D. And if we're looking at the end of the school year, let's say they don't come the last week in school. You can uncheck those tracks at the end of the year. So those don't count against your seniors. So that's some different ways that tracks are used. But what you want to do again is make sure everything is filled out. So moving across, you have your type. This is really internal use only. PowerSchool and Meta don't really use this for anything. These are assigned, or these types are assigned by your district and can be updated or changed as needed. I think it's a great idea to have this information in here because at a glance, it just really stands out. But I mean, it's again, it's a district decision, a district preference. So in session, and then if you have anything EMIS related, this might show up as an error or triangle. We don't really go over this in this training because this is something you'll want to get with your EMIS coordinator, and then they can show you how to make changes in there. I'm not even going to click into it, as needed. So if you have any anomalies with a certain group of students, it might come up here where you need to add additional EMIS information, and your EMIS person knows to come back here and look at calendars once they're set up. And then this last box is very internal. This is just notes. I rarely see people use this, but it's there for you if you need it. So if you were going to set up your calendar for the entire year, as you can see, this would be a really tedious process because, again, these would have all been blank. You would have to come in here and check everything. So you have another option, which is the automated calendar. And actually, before I go to that, so I made a bunch of changes here. And this is a new customization. So if you don't have this turned on, I would recommend turning it on. Unsaved changes pending. So it used to be you could switch from screen to screen or from month to month, and it would not give you an error message, but it also didn't save what you just made changes for. So that's an added customization. So now you can see you also get a warning that you haven't saved your changes because as you're moving from month to month, you have to save your changes to do the entire year. Okay, so coming back here to school management, scheduling, configure automated calendar. So if you come in here, and I'm going to leave because I don't want to save that. Your automated calendar allows you to set up the same pattern of cycle days, bell schedules, in-session days for the entire school year, and then go back and just change those things that need to be changed. So you're going to come in here and you're going to put your first day of school and your last day of school, and you're going to fill out a typical week's pattern. So probably a Monday through Friday, regular bell schedule, in session, value of 1, check all your tracks, mark them all as in session or whatever your typical week is. Once you hit save and come back to your calendar on this side, everything is going to be filled in the same throughout the entire year. So at that point, you can come in here and you can go to December and you can come in here and pull out your holidays. Make sure you uncheck, if this is not in session on Friday, December 26th, you want to make sure to uncheck the information that's in here and have it blank. Okay, so it doesn't count as a membership day for your school. Any questions on the calendar? There's also, I believe, YouTube. I think when they do the live site training, they also go in depth on calendar setup as well. Okay. Oh, batch school setup as well. So for all your district leaders out there, if you are going to use batch school setup and set these up for your buildings, just a couple of things to keep in mind. You can only set up like buildings. So if all your high schools are on the same calendar, you can batch set those up. If all your elementaries and so forth, you can't batch school every building because they're probably on different calendars. So there has to be that commonality. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is we're going to review bell schedules. So we're going to come back here to school management, scheduling, and now we're going to look at bell schedules. There was a training on bell schedules probably about a month or two ago because there was a lot of questions on bell schedules. And there was, with calamity days and just different things that happen, bell schedules are super important not to make changes to once the year has started. So there's a lot of tips and tricks in that YouTube video that I highly suggest you taking a look at. But when you initially come in here as a school building for the end of the year, you just want to look at your bell schedules. You want to, you can compare it and to the previous year. Just make sure your bell schedules are how your building needs them to be set. You're going to open up your bell schedule. So a regular day bell schedule should encompass, your start time and end time should be your full day. One thing to note that's very, very important is you should never have any gaps. So if this period ends at 7:24, the next period should start the next minute and so forth. You don't want to add travel time into your bell schedule. The biggest reason for that is the Go Find Me alert or Find Me alert. So if you have students that are moving around your building and for whatever reason, you need to figure out where that student is at. If you don't incorporate the Find Me information into your bell schedule and you click on that student's Find Me alert, you're going to have no idea where they're coming from or going to. So having that information correct will allow you, it can at least tell you they're moving from class A to class B and so forth. There's other ramifications of this, attendance related, excuse me. But again, I'm not going to go into details. There's a whole training on bell schedules. So come in here and take a look. Make sure there's only one period that's being used for attendance, and your time ins and times outs. And just at a glance, really. If anything just doesn't look right to you, just please contact your district leader or whoever takes care of your bell schedule. Okay. So now we're moving down to general, and we want to verify our FTEs exist in the next school year. So we're still in 26-27, and we're in school management still, but now we're going to go into attendance. And we want to go to attendance, and then we want to look at our full-time equivalencies. Okay, so you want to make sure to click in to your full day or any of them that you have built. And what you're checking for is that you have full-time equivalencies available to every grade that you offer in your building. So you can see right here, 10th grade is missing and 12th grade is missing, and potentially grade 15 if there is a grade 15 in this building. So you want to make sure that all of those boxes are checked for the following school year. Otherwise, like we talked about earlier, when you go look at those individual students, you might see an error on their FTE because you were not able to give them one because the box wasn't checked, and then it's going to affect their ADA, ADM, and then it's going to affect their attendance. It's kind of just that ripple down effect that affects everything. So just some verifications. All right. So I just have two more reminders. The first one is for EMIS purposes, and this is for all staff out there. Please do not inactivate any staff before you run the end of the year process. Even if you have had staff abruptly leave their building and are never coming back, do not inactivate them. You can go ahead and remove their security. You can have your district leader do that. Just to make sure that they can't get into the system. But just go ahead and leave them as active staff and then check with your EMIS coordinator for further instructions. So after the end of the year process runs, they typically have to pull out some information with regard to staff, and then they will give the green light to the buildings and whatnot as to when those staff can be inactivated. The other reminder is on, actually, let me double check. Yeah, it's on the checklist. I'm not going to read through this because it does get quite confusing, but if you are a middle school building or a high school building that issues earned credit to run certain reports, you might issue earned credit at semester because you want to know what the seventh semester GPA is for your graduating seniors. But then you actually give them the earned credit at the end of the school year. So read the information on here. You want to make sure to submit a ticket to Salesforce, to Meta, to remove those earned credit values that you issued just to run certain reports and get data out of your system. Because if the earned credit is in there at semester, but then the earned credit is also in there at the end of the school year, it's going to impact class rank and final GPAs. So this is very, it doesn't apply to everybody, but we do see this happen in middle schools and high schools where earned credit is stored. Okay. So the school building checklist is done. So anybody that only works on a school building checklist is, well, let's open it up for questions first. Does anybody have any questions that we've talked about before we move to the district checklists? And again, feel free to take yourself off mute or type into the chat. Okay, well, if there's no questions and you are a person that only works on the school building checklist, you are welcome to sign off at this time. The rest of the information that we are going to cover today involves district leaders. You're welcome to stay on if you'd like to watch the process, but it's not necessary. Stephanie is going to go ahead and take over now. So I will leave it to her.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, so this portion of the training will go much more quickly. Most of what we will cover here is reviewing what was completed at the building level through that checklist. But we do have the list separated, as you may have staff in each of your buildings who complete the school building checklist, but then we ask that you, as the district leader, complete the district checklist just to verify that all items have been completed at the building level. Additionally, there are a couple items on the district checklist that are not on the school building checklist. And we ask that all steps on both checklists are completed no later than a week prior to your scheduled end of year date. So getting started here, we are in the district office and we are also in the current school year. So for the first item on the district checklist, you'll want to make sure that the years and terms have been created, including at the district office. So the easiest way to do this is by clicking on the term switcher here. So you can see that 26-27 has been created, as well as some of those other semester quarter terms within 26-27. And as part of this, on the district checklist, you'll also want to navigate into each of your buildings and then do the same thing. Make sure that you are seeing 26-27 here. As Christine mentioned, there is the batch school setup option. So if you are the person at your district who sets up years and terms, this could save you some time with those like buildings. So if you have multiple elementaries using the same years and terms, you could use the batch school setup function. I'll talk a little bit more about that further down the list, since that would be completed in the future school year. Next, you'll want to be sure the dates in years and terms are correct in both Power Scheduler and on the live side. So if you are a Power Scheduler district, you'll just want to be sure that you check in with your schedulers to make sure those dates have been entered correctly and that they're the same on the live side as well. The next item on our checklist is optional, and that is suppressing classes for terms from parent and student users, which will block guardians and students from seeing next year's schedules without fully closing the portal or the mobile app. In order to do this, you will navigate in each of the buildings where you want to suppress terms. So we're in Jeffstad Elementary School here, and we will navigate to school management, scheduling, and then years and terms. And from here, next to the 26-27 school year, we will select edit terms. And then you would just go into each of the terms by clicking on them. And you'll see here the suppress classes for this term from parent/student users. So we have this checked. That means classes will be suppressed for this term. They won't be visible. But if that was not checked and you would like those to be hidden, you'll just check this box and then submit. And then we would go back to our term setup page and just repeat for each of the terms that we have here. If you do not want your years and terms suppressed, please let us know that on your end of year Salesforce ticket. So moving back to the district office. This is another optional step, and that is hiding the schedule within the Meta Online report card from the parent-student portal. To do this, you'll navigate to District Management. It's under Academics, and then Report Card Settings. And we'll scroll down about halfway under this parent-student portal header. If you select Display Schedule, we'll make sure it's set to Do Not Display so that it'll be hidden. If it was set to Show, then you could change that and submit. So if it's set to show, then students can, it's kind of a workaround to see their schedule. They can go into their report card and it will show them their current classes that they're registered for. So this will hide that on the report card from their view. Any questions so far?
Nothing in the chat.
Okay, thank you. So the next item at the district office is not on the school checklist as it is specific to the district only, and that is checking the default term between school years. So to do this, we'll navigate to district management again. It's under district setup and additional system preferences. And then about halfway down, you'll see this setting here, default term when between school years. So most of our districts use closest school year, and that is what we recommend. And what this setting is referring to is when you sign into the SIS, you'll see here in the top corner, the default year, which right now is 25-26. So if you have this option on closest school year, what will happen is when you reach the halfway point of the summer plus 1 day, when users sign into the SIS, they will automatically see the 26-27 school year immediately when they sign in. And again, that is the setting that we recommend. There is also the option for previous school year. And the way that works is when users sign in, they would continue seeing the 25-26 school year until you go back in and change this option to closest school year. The bottom option here, next school year, we do not recommend using this option. If you do select this option, what will happen is the day after your last day of school, the default term, it will be 26-27 when users sign in. But this is important because it also applies to teachers, and usually they have a few days once the school year has ended to finalize their grades. But if you select this option, they would not have the ability to do that. So again, we recommend closest school year. And as a reminder, if you do make any changes to this setting, this is one of those options. It requires an overnight process to take effect. So just keep that in mind. If you make a change here, you'll see that take effect the next day. So moving along on our checklist, the next item is disabling the parent portal and the mobile app at the district level for the summer. So this is another option also on the additional system preferences page. So again, that's under district management, district setup, and then additional system preferences. So if we scroll down just a couple lines below the last setting that we looked at, you'll see disable student and parent portals and mobile apps. So if you check this box here, students and guardians will not be able to access the portal at all. If you are using My Power Hub, this setting also applies to My Power Hub since they use the same authentication system. So if you check that box, then right below that, you'll also see, if disabled, display this message to students and parents. So you can put a message in there just letting them know that the portal is closed for the summer and when it will reopen. One thing that's important to note with this setting is we do have districts who are using the portal to share test scores out to families. So if your district wants students and guardians to be able to see test information over the summer, then you won't want to check this box, or you may decide to leave it open for a couple weeks after school ends, then go back in and check the box so they have time to review those test scores before the portal closes for summer. And you can also disable the portal at the individual building levels, and we have included the breadcrumb on the checklist if you would prefer to do it that way. But that option also allows you to enter a message that will display while the portal is closed. Any questions on this screen?
Nope, nothing in the chat.
Thank you. So the next item on our checklist is creating next year's list of standards. This is an optional setting because if your district is currently using standards and they'll be the same next year, those will automatically roll over during the end of your process and there's nothing that you need to do. But if your district is making any changes to standards for next year, then you'll want to create next year's standards so that you can get started on that. To do that, we'll navigate to district management, academics, and then within the standards section, we'll choose standards for next year. And then on this page, it has a brief description of what this function is doing. But if you click on create standards list, what this will do is it will copy your 25-26 standards over to the 26-27 year. And then that will allow you to get started on making changes. But it is very important if you are using this function to make sure that you are in the 26-27 school year and not editing current standards for this school year while you're working on this. So the next item on our checklist is running the searches that Christine performed at the building level. These same searches are on our district checklist, and as you would expect, this will check all students through all of the buildings. We have these included on the district checklist just to verify that all of the buildings are completed, but we know most of your buildings are brick and mortar, and there may be building staff completing the building checklist, but then you also have some of those non-brick and mortar buildings, such as your graduates building or your electronic building, where there aren't staff present. And so running these searches at the district level will make sure that students in those buildings are all set to roll over to the next year as well. So in the interest of time, I won't run the searches again, but you will want to run each of these and take a look at those to make sure any errors are cleaned up. But if you are in a district where you have other staff helping with the building checklist and you see a large number of students from a specific building, then you can give them a call and just remind them to work through the building checklist and run these searches regularly. Or as Christine showed us, you can go ahead and enter their next school or their next year grade on the scheduling settings page, or you can do that in mass as well. So again, just performing these searches at the district level as an extra verification to make sure all items on the school building checklist have been completed and that students in those non-brick and mortar buildings are ready to roll over as well. The second search, the Schedule_next year grade, that will display any student who is missing their next school grade. Please note here, students who are graduating, they will be given a grade level of 99 and a next school of the graduate building. So as a reminder, you just want to be sure that you don't withdraw graduates as they're promoted to the graduate building rather than withdrawn. And then you'll just repeat these searches for your pre-registered students using the searches on the checklist. And what's very important with these searches is if there are any students coming up, it will stop the end of year process from being completed. So we here at Meta will run your end of year process, but we would also get errors if there are any students showing up within the searches, and we would not be able to run your end of year process. So we would need to reach out to you to get those cleaned up. But as you know, the timeline there is just very tight, and we want to make sure that this goes smoothly for everyone and that we can get you back into your environments quickly. So it's just important to run these regularly and make sure that those errors have been resolved. Next on our checklist is running the year-end setup errors report and correcting any errors that might be displaying there. This is a report that Christine ran at the building level. So to do so, we'll navigate to Data and Reporting, PSCB Custom Reports, and it will be under the validation category. And then we will choose year-end setup errors. You can see here at the top, you can make this group of students your current selection, so you can work through resolving those errors. So this is one of those times if you do have two monitors, it might be nice to make this group of students your selection and open them in your second monitor. And then you'll see here on this report in the right-hand column, it will let you know which errors each of these students have that need to be resolved so you can work through those. And again, even though this was completed at the building level, we run it again at the district level just to make sure that all buildings are set, including those non-brick and mortar buildings.
Can you show us the path to that report one more time, please, Stephanie?
So that is under Data and Reporting, PSCB Custom Reports, and then it's within the validation category. And it was year-end setup errors.
Thank you. That was a question in the chat.
Any other questions? Okay, so we will move to the future year for the next item on our checklist. That is building school calendars for next school year. So we'll select the 26-27 school year. And this step can be done at each school individually. So you may see that this item has already been completed by the person following the building checklist. But if you are the person responsible for this, and if you wish to use batch school setup, that is completed at the district office under district management, scheduling, and batch school setup. And if you are interested in utilizing this feature, we have a video on batch school setup available on our YouTube channel, and it is linked in the district end of year checklist. But as Christine mentioned, if you are using batch school setup, your days and bell schedules, they must match exactly in all of the buildings that you would push this out to. So typically that would just be using it for multiple elementaries, or if you have multiple middle schools or multiple high schools where they all follow the same calendar and years and terms. Before we move on, again, I just wanted to remind everyone to be sure that you are working in the correct year as you're navigating through the checklist. We have notated when you are working in the current year versus the future year. But you'll also notice, since we are currently in the future year, if you have the customization turned on, you'll see the green banner here at the top, letting you know that you are in the future year as a helpful reminder. And so when you're ready to navigate back to the current year, you can use the drop down here, or you have the option to just select change to current year on the banner, which we'll go ahead and do now. So back in 25-26, and again, we're in the district office. We're now going to complete the end of year validation, which is found in district management, school rollover, and then end of year processing. You'll see here this top section. It lists out everything that this function will do, including rolling standards over, setting exit dates, entry dates. All of that is being done with this process. The next section here, it gives you a list of items that you need to complete before running end of year. Again, we complete the actual rollover for you, but these items, as well as some others, are a bit more detailed in the checklist than what you see here on the screen. But on number 5, you will see here there is a hyperlink to export data archives. So if you wanted to export your historical grades, you can do so using this link here. I'm not sure if we have any districts who utilize this function, but it is available. We do recommend, if you decide to run this report, that you do it on the weekend, as it does take multiple hours to complete, and so it will go more quickly if other users aren't in the system at that time. And then continuing to move down our list, you'll see here at the top, it lists a description of each of the types of students. And then we also see all of our school buildings, as well as the school number, the highest grade for each school, and then the default next school for the students who are in the highest grade, those students who will be moving to the next building. At the bottom, again, we see our types of students here on the left, and then we can review the default values for the exit code, entry code, and exit comment for each type of student. In the drop down here at the bottom, it will default to perform end of year validation. And what this is doing, it's not actually performing the end of year process, but it is performing a validation of your information. There's also the option to perform the end of year validation and make any students with issues the current selection. This option is really nice because not only do you want to identify any issues, but you also need to be able to correct them. So this option more easily allows you to do both. You'll see here under this line, there is the perform end of year and promote students option. So that is the process that we will use when we run your actual end of year process. So you want to be sure that you're not clicking on that option, but instead using perform end of year validation and make any students with issues the current selection.
Very, very, very important.
Yes. Okay, so once we select that option, then we'll choose perform end of year processing here. So here at the top in this table, it will show us the number of students who are pre-registered, being promoted, skipping a grade, etc. One thing that we like to point out with students skipping a grade is you may see a large number of students here in your environments, but 12th grade students, because they are moving to grade 99 and not grade 13, PowerSchool counts those students as skipping a grade. So you may see a larger number of students than you expect in that group. And then if we scroll down, you'll see here under the table all of the students who have errors or issues that need to be cleaned up. So when running this validation in your live environment, you want to be sure that there are no students coming up. If there are any students listed here, again, that would stop your end of year process from running. So you want to work on this between now and your end of year scheduled date. But again, since we chose the option to perform end of year validation and make any students with issues the current selection, you can open a new tab and see all of your students here. Again, that might be a situation where you want to use dual monitors, so you can open up this group of students and navigate to their scheduling settings page, and then I'll show you real quick. So once we navigate to this page for the first student in our selection, then we can use the arrows here at the top to continue navigating through the list. But if we go back to our report, you'll notice each student here is also a hyperlink. So if we click on that, it will also take us right to that scheduling settings page. So whichever way you prefer to work through the list and resolve the errors that are coming up. So that's actually it for the district checklist. But as a reminder, as you work through both the building and district checklists, if you have any questions, we ask that you submit those on the existing end of year ticket so that your assigned staff member can assist with that. And you'll also be hearing from your assigned team member prior to your end of year date, checking in. And we'll be running these validations as well, just to make sure that there are no students coming up who would stop the process from running. We ask that you please update the end of year Salesforce ticket to let your assigned team member know once you've completed both checklists and all errors have been corrected. And again, we recommend having these completed at least 1 week before the scheduled end of year date. So that concludes today's training. We really appreciate everyone taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. We know this time of year gets pretty hectic, so thank you. But Christine and I will stick around if you have any other questions, and we hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.